Yeah, well, I almost forgot the introduction on this. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. Those who are potentially watching on YouTube or whatever other channels. This is Finding Good, the podcast. Is that what we're landing on here? Yeah. So for those new here, we are having discussions about connection, the idea of what connection is and what disconnection is, because when we talk about that word, most everybody understands like what connection feels like. They have their own experience with it. But then when we get into defining like, well, what is that experience? Like, what is connection? It gets a little muddy. And so we thought we'd have a podcast about exploring different perspectives on connection and also different perspectives and lived experiences of disconnection, right? And so stories of connection and disconnection from different people, and hopefully give us all a bigger understanding of what connection is and looks like to different people, and with the hopes of increasing all of our awareness on how important connection is to our survival. Yeah. Bree, why don't you jump us into this fine gentleman we have with us this week?
Yes, today we are chatting with Steve Robertson, PhD. Dr. Steve Robertson is a leadership development trainer, coach, and consultant, and the founder of Blueroot Leadership Development. He's been developing leaders for more than 14 years at organizations like Hewlett Packard, St. Luke's Health System, Boise State University's MBA program, and other commercial and nonprofit organizations in the Boise area. Thank you so much for being with us today, Steve.
Well, thank you, Bree and Brian. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, good to have you, Steve. Yeah, well, maybe we would talk like knowing that conversation's broad, like we get connection, disconnection. I already have some questions given the responses you sent earlier, but I'm curious where, like in this conversation about connection, like what feels like a good starting spot for you? Like when you think of connection, like what comes up first?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. What I'm most excited about is the realization of how important it is. And my background, Brian, you and I know each other a little bit from outside of this podcast, and
Right.
we've been friends for a few years. And you may not know my full background. I worked for many years as an attorney in private practice and in corporate legal department at Hewlett Packard. I'd been a high school teacher and administrator. I'd been in a number of different roles. And up through my 20s and 30s, my main focus and work was having the right answer and being able to add value and contribute and work hard and, be a good team member from that standpoint in terms of what was I producing. And in 2010, I had the opportunity offered to me to move out of the legal department at HP and help start up a brand new learning and development, organizational development team. And the secret was I was going to be one of the managers on this team.
Right.
But as we were first forming the group and recruiting people to join, the director didn't reveal fully that I would be one of the managers helping her lead this team of people. And initially, our task was building out the scope and developing some proposals for what kind of trainings and programs we were going to offer. And so I had the chance to start to work with a couple of the women who were going to be on my team, but they didn't know it yet. So we were all, colleagues, peers working together to build out some proposals for our director. And I was so excited to be in that role, helping to build out some learning proposals and architect some employee development programs, et cetera. And I had tons of ideas. And I'd done a lot of research, I had a lot of passion around this topic. And I came into these meetings with these two other women full of ideas and sort of leading the conversation, and thought that I was adding a lot of value because I had great ideas.
Yeah.
Or at least I thought I had great ideas. So fast forward 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. We were getting ready for my boss to announce that these people would be reporting into me and I would be their leader. And my boss pulled me aside the day before the announcement and said, Steve, I need to talk with you about the about the plan for the reporting structure. And she said, there's gonna be a little bit of a change. I said, oh, okay. Like, well, what's the change? She said, well, there's 2 women you were working with. I told them that they were going to be reporting to you, and they basically said that they refused to work for you.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah. This was devastating and so embarrassing. And I said, her name is Nancy. I said, Nancy, like, why? And she said, I think fundamentally they just don't feel connected or like psychologically safe with you because you just had all the ideas. You didn't really ask their opinion about things. We have some work to do on your management and leadership skills. I still believe in you. I still want you to lead this team, and I will help you get better at this.
Take me into the moment, like you got that news, like what, because I'm always curious, like,
Yeah.
because our brain is going to come up with a story, right? Like, we
Yeah.
get this, like, what was the initial story for you? Like you
Yeah.
got this news, and like, how was your brain kind of like processing that? Like, what were you telling yourself, as it were?
Yeah. So to understand where my brain was at that moment, it's helpful to remember, like, what did this job represent for me? This was my first opportunity to lead people doing work I was really passionate about, to make the move out of the legal department into more of a people development role, which was something I'd wanted to do for a long time. And I'd be working for a woman who I just had so much respect for and love. And I thought she was an amazing leader. And I was so proud that she picked me to be one of her managers. So I had a lot of hope and optimism and excitement going into this, both for what it was going to do for my career and the kind of contribution I could make, and like what it meant about me as a future leader. And then to be just smacked across the face with the reality that people don't want to be led by you. And maybe I don't have what it takes. And maybe she made a mistake. And, as soon as when she first told me this is what they said, of course, my first thought was, oh my gosh, she's going to fire me. Like, she's going to say, Steve, I'm sorry, but this isn't working out.
Yeah.
Go back to being a lawyer. Clearly, that's where you deserve to be. And two, thankfully, she's so amazing. She did not abandon me. She recognized that she had some work to do in helping to develop my skills and the way I thought about leading people in a team. But she believed in me enough to say, let's make this work. I'll help you with it. And she did not give up on me. But in that moment, but to your question, like, it felt so embarrassing. And so I was so worried that it was this dream I had was already crumbling and blowing up before it even started.
Yeah. And her response like that, it sounds like it was fairly unexpected, right? She didn't like fire you. She said, like, how did that help with, or did it help with like the reframing that experience for you? Right. From a, like, here's a failure to like, how did that change how you maybe even looked at that experience?
Yeah, her approach allowed me to find hope in it, right? Where like the immediate news, like the headline was, Steve, people don't want to work for you. You're a failure. You'll never be a good leader. To, you don't know how to do this yet. I'll help you figure it out. I believe in you. I know you're the right choice for this. Gave me a sense of hope and optimism, a little bit of more confidence, like maybe I could figure it out. She's really smart and experienced. She's led many teams before. And I was willing to trust her and then acknowledge, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. I need a lot of help with this. Clearly, obviously, I mean, sorry, that's so obvious to say, but I need a lot of help with this, way more help than I realized I was going to need.
Do you think that you would have been open to the idea that I need some help with this had you just been like sent back to legal? Like, I'm just curious, because it sounds like there was a lot of really good stuff that happened in how, she handled this interaction with you. And I wonder if there is if you can see, like, because of that, I was able to see this as learning. Is there a chance that if you were sent back, you would have just maybe been like, well, maybe that's not for me, right?
Yeah, it's hard to know for sure because I
Sure.
had the fortunate path that she opened up for me. But
Hmm.
um, knowing myself, I think that if she did not show any faith in me in that moment, it would have been hard for me to find it in myself.
Mm.
And I'm curious about that, because you said the headline earlier was basically you just like in your own head saying, these are all the terrible things about me. And then
Yeah.
her coming in and saying, I believe in you, we're going to work on this. What
Yeah.
was required in the dynamic between the two of you for her to have those thoughts and for you to believe that?
Yeah. Great question, Bree. We should interview her to know this for sure.
Right? But
But
from your perspective.
so the backstory there is, for close to 8 years, I had worked really closely with her.
Mhm.
And I had been in a role as the senior attorney supporting this large function at HP, and she was one of the leaders of that group. And in my role as the senior attorney, I actually did a ton of training and coaching and mentoring. And I think she had seen that I had the capacity to help bring people along and help them feel safe and create a good learning environment for them. And that she knew in my heart this was the kind of work I wanted to be doing. So I think she knew enough about what my passions and undeveloped talents were to have hope for me. And then what we had in our dynamic that allowed me to believe her was we had a very high degree of trust.
Hmm.
Like she had a ton of credibility as a leader, as a very successful leader. And I felt like she knew me well enough. And if she saw some potential, that that it's probably there. Like there is some potential there. And as she like breathed life into that hope, then I could feel it myself and say, yeah, this is the path I'm supposed to be on. Obviously, I have a lot of work to do. I'm going to need a lot of help. I got 2 mentors and read every book I could get my hands on how to be a better leader as a result of this experience. And over time, asked for a lot of feedback from my team that I was leading, and they helped me figure out what they needed from me, et cetera. And so over time, I got better. But it started with her knowing me and me feeling that she could be trusted to have that hopefulness.
Mhm. And I'm curious because you'd kind of written about this a little bit, like how did that moment change your understanding, or did that change your understanding of connection?
Oh, it was significant.
Mhm.
The change in my understanding about the importance of connection. Yeah. Which is part of the reason why I'm such a big fan of the work, Brian, that you and Bree are doing, because I know how important it is for leaders and teams and people to be able to do their best work and thrive,
And
at work.
and and in that
Mhm.
experience, what was the shift for you? Like what was the before state of understanding
Yeah.
connection, and what did you sort of, shifted for?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to answer that through the lens of leadership, if that's okay.
Mhm.
And then tell me if this is off track of what you were thinking. Um, Prior to this wake up call,
Mhm.
I thought leaders were supposed to have all the answers and provide the direction and map out the path. Um, and then through this experience, I learned very quickly that yes, that might be a part of the job, but maybe a more important part of the job is creating a safe environment for your people to do their best work
Mhm.
and for them to feel excited about what they're doing. And so it's not about me as the leader, it's about the team. And and so my role is to help them feel valued and supported and appreciated and trusted,
Mhm.
and to give them room to run and come up with their own ideas, and all in the service of the mission that we're trying to accomplish, of course.
Mhm.
So we have to be really clear on what the outcomes are that we want to deliver together, but to really empower them to step into their full greatness. Like that's my job. to point them in the right direction and help them be as great as possible. And that's such a different way of thinking about leading prior to this experience. And connection is really at the heart of this. And I remember, so fast forward my story, after I think it was a year and a half, 2 years, Nancy was promoted to a different role. And I then stepped into her job, and then all the people were reporting into me, including these two women who prior to this didn't want to work for me. And I remember when I was doing my initial like getting to know you kind of conversation, and I asked each of them like, what's really important to you in your work and in your relationship with the team and with me? And I remember one of them said, I just want to do cool work with people that I enjoy being with and who I feel close to. And I thought, okay, that's such a great little roadmap. And I recognized that earlier in my first interaction with her, my focus was just on the work. It was like doing great work. Let's make this thing amazing. Let's deliver a great result. Let's really impress people with what we're doing. And I had no focus on that, doing it with people that I like and care about and feel comfortable with. And she told me, first by rejecting me as a leader, and then later telling me what was important to her, that this idea of connection and being a part of this group was just as important as the work that she was doing. And, so that combined with lots of things I was reading and help I was getting from mentors and support from Nancy, helped me understand how important this psychological and emotional climate is for the people that we're working with.
Well, and that's such an interesting topic as well, that I feel like not enough leaders actually get that conversation, and they don't actually learn that lesson that that the work is actually dependent on the culture itself. Yes. When you have that safe, trusting, friendly community and culture in the workplace, the result of that is that your work is going, people are going to deliver. There's going to be high quality work. People are going to be responsive to feedback. They're going to want to work off of each other's strengths. But not enough leaders actually take that lesson to heart. So I think that's really interesting of like the ultimate goal is delivering the work, but the methods of actually approaching it are completely different. The first go around for you was focusing on the actual, let's do the work. Second time around is, what do my people need in order to want to be here and deliver?
That's exactly right, Bree.
Yeah.
I love that. Great summary.
Yeah. And I got like when you said that, like the idea of trust, right? Like, and it's funny because I'll ask people that a lot of times in workshops, like, what do you need to trust somebody else? And there's often two categories of answers that actually kind of highlight, I think, more of like if we look at just like the history of work, especially in industrial, moving into a post-industrial, 50 years ago, you would say, how do you trust your manager? And the answer would be, they know what to do, right? Because in that, like, if you were working on an assembly line, if you were working in with a lot of the work you used to do in mining companies and oil and gas companies, like that, the manager, the person leading, needs to know what to do. And then it's like, that's the driving. And so that was the definition of trust. And you even ask people like with their salesperson, like, hey, how do you know you trust your salesperson? Well, they know what, right? They know their product. Like, so we have this reference point of like, you can almost split in half of like, trust means I trust this person to do their job, that they know what they're doing, they know what's going on. And this other half of, and I would say it's not half and half anymore. It's moving much more into, I trust that they are going to understand me. They're going to have my needs in mind, that they're going to listen to me, that they're going to, have my best interests, my goals and wants and needs in mind. And I think that like, as you were, it sounds like very much brought up into that, like, I need to know what to do. I need to have the answers. I need to go And I don't know that and I love your experience or love your opinion on this, because I sort of view it as like part of the leader's job is to actually strike the balance. Like maybe, like how much of this do I do? But also if I don't know, what I'm doing, right? Or at least,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, how do we, and I think about it as in my own leadership of like the times I've been like, oh yeah, like I understand you, I know you, and the people I'm leading are like, yeah, but tell us what the hell to do, right? Like where to go, right? And from your perspective, like how do you wrestle with that balance, or how do you help
Yeah,
leaders
yeah,
wrestle with that balance?
yeah. That's what a great question. So I'm reminded of a little story I can share. I remember this was again at Hewlett Packard. There was a like director level leader who was going to be promoted into leading a new functional area that he had no background in.
Mm,
So he was going to be leading a team of professional, like industry leading experts in this one discipline that he knew almost nothing about. And this was still early in my tenure leading a team. And I remember thinking, that is so amazing. I'm so jealous of him because he is not going to have uh, he's not going to be tempted to try to be the guy with all the answers because he doesn't know anything,
right.
right? Like how liberating must that be to be able to focus fully on working with the team to shape the vision and to figure out how can I support you? You're the experts. How can I help you be great and feel great about what you're doing? And I thought that's pretty amazing because so many leaders, when they are brought up in a discipline, like if you're an accountant and you're managing accountants, you are probably best at the team at all the things the team does. And so it's very tempting to want to do it for them or to show them the best way to do it, thinking you're helping. But what you're really doing is you're just getting in the way or creating this dependency on you. And your team's not going to flourish and develop that way. And so, on the one hand, it would be ideal to have no technical experience in what your team is doing
Right.
because you won't be tempted to jump in and tell people how to do it. I think the reality is that that's too far to the extreme,
Mm,
Mm,
right? Because there are many moments in the life of a team where the leader needs to have an understanding of the unique challenges within that field or within the work the team is doing, to have empathy and compassion for what they're going through and help troubleshoot, or jump in and start digging to make, start jump in the hole, start digging the ditch with the team. So I think you need to have, it's really helpful to have expertise in what the team is doing. There's so many different ways that can be helpful as long as we're balancing it. And so the balance you're talking about needs to look like um, adding my expertise when it's going to help enable the team to move forward in an empowering way.
yeah.
And if I'm jumping in to help and it's not empowering them and not helping them get better, then I think I'm a little bit out of balance. And
Right.
so having the expertise, that domain knowledge to offer, um, is really important. And just knowing, well, what is my role really? I
Mhm.
used to be, here's an analogy I sometimes use. Um, let's imagine I'm the best field goal kicker on the team. I have 100% accuracy rate in field goals on a football team. The minute I step out of that role and now I'm coaching the team, it's not my job to run in the field and kick field goals anymore during the game. I need to prepare my team to do that. Right.
Mm,
And so, what is my job really? Like, my job as a leader is to align the team to an inspiring, meaningful mission, right? So that we're clear on what we're here for and the value we're contributing to the organization in a way that's exciting to the people on the team and that's aligned with what the organization needs from us. So point them in the right direction and then figure out, what does each member of this team need to unleash their full potential and be great.
mm,
mm,
And it's going to be variable depending on the level of experience and skill that they have, right? Some people are going to need more hand holding and direction and ride along the side of them and show them how to do some things. Other people won't need that. And so understanding what does each person need to contribute and help us achieve our objectives is the key thing. And in that understanding of what's required for each person's success is where we can modulate the extent to which we let our own talents and knowledge, come out and play, and when we need to keep it, under wraps so that they can allow their own greatness to shine. So I think it really depends on the specifics of the person, and always being mindful, always being mindful and asking, what does the team need now? What does Brian need in this moment? What does Bree need right now to be successful and feel great about what she's doing? And then making a little micro adjustments as we go.
So something that's coming up for me as you were explaining all of this, it almost sounds like the fundamental aspect of being a great leader is seeing everybody's value on the team and
Yes.
having that conversation with them. Like you mentioned, leaders who have expertise in the area and leaders that don't. I think there's opportunity for both of them, particularly the leader who doesn't have the experience or the expertise. Can imagine how great it would feel as an employee if your boss came to you and said, show me how you do your thing, because I'm not, this is my first time seeing this. Can you show me how you are an expert in what you do? How much value that person would feel. And then let's say someone who does have the expertise, that would actually require almost putting aside their ego
Yeah, right.
and saying, show me how you do what you do. I want to see your value in the work that you're doing. That would, so much restraint is involved with that, but I think that'd be an incredible leadership quality to make those employees feel that value. And, that's the basis of everything that we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, Bree, that's amazing. And this is making me think you really need to interview Nancy, because as you are sharing that, I'm remembering like two of the most common refrains that I would hear from Nancy.
What were those?
Ringing in my ears, and I'm recognizing, even as I'm talking with you, what a profound impact she had on my development as a human and as a leader. Two things she would always say. Number one, Steve, I may not be very smart at what we do, but I'm good at really one thing, and that's hiring smart people. Okay. Here's the thing. I knew it was baloney, right? Like, I knew how good she was and how talented she was and how experienced she was, but she kept saying it. Steve, I'm not good at this, but I'm good at hiring smart people. And she must have said it 2 or 3 dozen times in the time I worked with her. And it just sort of sunk in. I'm like, yeah, so she believes in us. Like, she could do all the work. She could do the job, everybody on this team, but she's focused on us. And she helped me bring that same focus to the people I was, privileged to be leading. The second thing that she would say all the time when I would go to her and say, Nancy, blah, 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 I need some help. What do you think? She would say, I don't know. What do you think? Right? The simplest coaching question in the world, and really in many ways, one of the most powerful questions. Like, I don't know. What do you think? Like, I'm not the expert. You are. What do you think? And she would just throw it back at me. And then I would have to figure out something to say and work my way through a solution and try it. And then come back and say, this is what happened. What else do you think? I don't know, Steve, what do you think? It just kept throwing it back at me. Remember, there's one time I said, Nancy, listen, I know you're going to say, Steve, what do you think? I really want to know what you think. And I don't think she told me. I think she just kept giving it back to me. And so it was not about her. It was about me and what I was trying to figure out.
And what, like, so I really actually like kind of two things. The first, like, that idea and what I think was what my perspective on like what sounded brilliant from Nancy was like how you said, well, I knew she was that talented. Well, my experience with just a lot of leaders, a lot of really talented people is the most talented people think they're crap. Like
That's interesting. Yeah. Well,
and what is not.
yeah.
There we are.
Yeah. Right. This has been my experience. The more I have learned, the more I realize I don't know yet.
Yeah.
And the more, possibilities open up, and that there is more than one way, way more than one way to do this. And the way I thought about doing it is just one of many approaches we could take. And there's so many different perspectives and life experiences and skills and talents that I don't have. I'd be a fool as a leader not to try to get all the potential resources out on the table and allow the best one to move forward. And so, yeah. Many people, I think, Brian, who rise up to levels of leadership are very high achieving, right? And very high achieving people can also be their own worst critic.
Yeah.
And so I think when you combine those things, where like the inner critic combined with recognizing how much you don't know, that can actually be a pretty interesting cocktail.
Yeah. And I don't know where I think you all froze for me. So I don't know where because I was talking and then the whole thing stopped. So I missed a little bit of that. But that I like that idea of like recognizing what I don't know and like owning it, right? Or rather even the feeling that I don't know. Like it's not like just, and the more I can, because I think the opposite of that is, and I see this, again in leaders and different folks, it's when that insecurity is there and I don't acknowledge it, we tend to overcorrect. I know all the things, right? Like I know, like it's and it's that fear of like, and I can imagine the fear of that manager you talked about earlier, like thrown into something they have no experience in. And you're so worried about getting called out on it that you again like overcorrect. I know what I've done. This is just like this, and you kind of like can tune that up, and like you get attuned to it, and like, oh, this person's going to be an issue. But I think where it connects and kind of what I'm interested in is like when she's asking you that, like, what would you do? What do you think you're doing? Like, what's really being developed in those moments? Like there's the knowledge, there's the ability to do, but like, what do you think is the primary thing? What a leader that does that, what are they really helping those folks? Like, perhaps what did she help you with? Like underneath all of that, like what was there an insecurity that maybe was spoken to for you?
For sure. Because many of us want to be great. We want to, be successful, and we want to know the right answer. And if we don't know what it is, we're going to want to be drawn towards more certainty and confidence that we have the right answer. And if we don't know what it is right now, we'll be tempted to look it up or to ask somebody else. And I think that's a normal human drive. And I think what Nancy helped transcend there was to put it back to me, give me the problem back with the implicit, I trust you to figure this out. I believe in you, and then force me to work through the discomfort, right? And work past the known into that unknown, which is where the sweet spot is, right? Moving beyond into that stretch area, on the learning edge, if you want to call it that, outside the comfort zone, and allow me to hang out there for a little while and like fumble around and try different things and brainstorm options and learn through doing and trying and experimenting and learning. So what she was really doing, and this is why I'm such a big fan of teaching leaders how to coach, right, is because it unlocks the additional potential within all of us and the people that we're working with to stretch and try new things and learn through the process of trial and error. And in the process of doing that, not only do our technical capabilities increase, but our sense of confidence and self-efficacy grows. Right. I often open leadership development workshops with the question, who was the best leader you ever worked for? How did it feel working for him or her? And what percentage of your potential did they get, right? And of course, in my mind, back in my mind, when I'm asking this question, I'm imagining Nancy, because she was, for me, that person, and how it felt working for her, trusted and valued and appreciated and seen. And what percentage of my potential did she get? It was more than 100, because she helped me develop my capacity. And those are the answers that I get all the time from leaders when I ask them this. They say it was more than 100%, because I started here, and after working with that person, my ceiling was here, and then it went here. It's because they helped me enlarge my, not just my technical knowledge, but my confidence in myself and my ability to figure things out.
And I think there's a tie-in of, we talk about the leader who says, well, I am not an expert in this. I don't have the answers. And what Nancy said was like, I hire smart people. I don't know. She was a smart woman, but saying that she didn't know. But so being able to, I'm seeing this balance of saying, I'm not sure what the answer is, but I trust that I am confident in you, and I trust you that you have that answer. And almost being able to, say, I'm not, because it's scary not having the answer. That's something coming up for me, is like when we are facing a concern or an issue and we don't have the answer, that is a scary feeling. It can be scary for the leader, which is probably why some leaders are prone to, have that overreaction of like, this is what you do, go and do it now. Whereas the ability to be calm in that situation and say, I trust you to figure this out. What are your thoughts? You are smart at this. I can't imagine what that would do for an employee's self-esteem and their ability to grow.
Well, I can tell you what positive impact it had for me.
It makes me think about in Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General's book Together, there's a section in there, and he quotes another biologist, I believe, and I wish I could remember the person's name, but I'm paraphrasing it. But the statement I remember reading it 3 years ago, and it just kind of sideswiped me into the work on connection. It's one of the things I think about all the time, but what he says is that our understanding of ourselves is a communal construct. Like our very understanding of ourselves is a communal construct. And so that idea, like, as you said, that idea of like, it was more than 100%, is this like, because of this interaction with another human being, because this other human being was able to kind of reflect my value back, and through this sort of expectation of like, what do you think and what would you do, right? My understanding of myself has now increased, because that wouldn't have happened, or rather would have been much more difficult to happen if I was to just try to develop that on my own, right? And that's, that's it from the leadership perspective, that's but it's also, how we're interacting with people. But I think that dynamic of like our ability to understand that 100% of what we're at now might only be 50% of what we might be, next year, because what we're at right now is just our limited understanding of who we are, what we're capable of. But with the right community around us, through rather connection, we increase that kind of understanding, literally changing how we think about, our understanding of who we are and what we're capable of.
Oh yeah, 100%, Brian. It's one of the reasons why I do the work I do, right, is to help newer leaders who are maybe struggling through some of the challenges I faced early in my career, to transcend some of those limiting beliefs and to step into the promise of having workplaces and teams where people can fully thrive and be seen and develop into their fullest potential and continue to expand that. And I do think it happens in relation, or in your language, in connection with one another, in pursuit of doing work that matters, right? And then stretching our abilities towards that with the support of others around us who see our potential before we do sometimes, to make it safe for us to veer out onto the ledge and try something new, and then realize we don't fall, or if we fall, we can get back up and try it again. Like, there's a beautiful, maximization of the human potential within that I think is worth it. I think it's why we're here. And to do work that matters together, I think is why we're here. And workplaces have the potential to be that way for everyone. And I know, regrettably, right now, that's not the case for so many of us. And so that's really my secret mission in my work, is to help create more workplaces that feel that way.
Yeah.
And yes, to Bree's earlier point, we're gonna produce such better results. The impact is so much better. And if we're working in a company that has a product or service that's worth something, or for a nonprofit or government agency doing important work for the people, then that's going to be amazing to help drive and deliver those outcomes. And we're going to go home at the end of the workday and feel good. And then we're going to be excited to go back tomorrow and do more of it, make more of this impact with people who we enjoy being with and who it feels good to be with. Like that's what we should all have, I think.
Yeah.
So one thing that you mentioned, and I think it perked up my ears when you said, the ability to try things and fail and then try them again. First off, our society does not always promote failure as a great way of learning and developing. So that's one thing that just internally for me, I hate failure. How, in your opinion, Steve, can we make it safe? How do we make it clear that it's safe for employees to fail and to grow from that? Because I think that's something that also would be huge from a leadership perspective with teams and getting people to grow and build their confidence and their knowledge and their skill sets. But it doesn't always feel safe to do that. So how do we build that safety?
Yeah. Well, have you ever watched a baby learn how to walk?
No, I have not.
You're about to.
I've got a baby, that will be happening in a couple.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm excited to check back with you. So the way a baby learns how to walk is by falling down 100 times.
Yeah.
Right. It's by having a goal, like I want to make it to that table, and I'm going to stand up, I'm going to take a step, and I'm going to fall. And I'm going to learn, okay, don't do it that way. So I'm going to stand up again and try another step and fall and realize, okay, that's not quite it. And I'm going to keep doing this until I make a step and I don't fall. And then I'm going to repeat that, and I'm going to keep going. Then I'm going to fall, and I'm going to get back up and try again. Like, this is how we learn.
Yeah.
This is how we learn, is by, and this is tapping into the work. I'm sure, Brian, the author, Erickson, on deliberate practice and the concept of, like, in order to get better at anything, you need to try it, get feedback, adjust your adjust your approach, try it again, get feedback, adjust your approach, and try again, all working towards a goal that's inspiring you to work through the challenges. This is fundamentally how we learn anything, whether it's a physical skill or a cognitive skill or a softer skill. It's through trial and error. And we need to acknowledge that. I mean, that there's no getting around that. That's like the law of gravity. It's as certain as the sun coming up in the morning. It's how we learn. And so if that's true, and if I'm leading a team and I want them to get better, then I need to create an environment where people feel safe to try things and fail. It's a shift in our mindset. All changes in behavior as a leader or as any other human being begin with the change in our mindset and our beliefs about what's important and about how stuff works. And so if I remember this is how people learn, is by trying something new and getting feedback, having some success and some not success, and trying it again, then I need to cultivate an environment where that feels safe and where I'm promoting that way of operating. So many years ago now, Google did a very famous research project on what would be the differentiator between the highest performing teams at Google. This was a part of a big research project they were doing. And the number one criteria for the most successful teams at Google was that they had a sense of psychological safety.
Yep.
Right.
Project
And,
Aristotle.
yeah, that's right. The Project Aristotle research. And of course, the concept of psychological safety is simply that it feels safe in this team to try something new and for it not to go perfect all the time. Right. And this is how we encourage people to try something new, get outside their comfort zone, get to their learning edge, and experiment and expand their capability and insight and wisdom and whatever they're working on. And it's also how we foster an environment that nurtures creativity and innovation and trying new things. So this is a really huge part of leading a team, is creating that environment, not only where we're connected and where we focus on our relationships, but also where we're fostering this sense that it's safe to try something and fail and learn from. And so to do that, long-winded answer to your question, we need to recognize the importance of it. And then we need to engage in some deliberate practices to help promote it. And a couple of the ones that I like to teach include sharing your own failures with the team. Hey team, here's something new I tried this week and it didn't go quite the way I'd hoped it would be. And here's what I learned from that. Here's what I'm going to try differently. So modeling that mindset and way of operating. When I led teams at HP, as a part of our regular staff meetings, we used to have a little agenda item, which was essentially, what failures can we celebrate this week?
Oh my God. I love that.
And
I love that question.
so I wanted to call it, what was like a spectacular failure? Like I wanted to call it that. And I asked the team what they wanted to call it, and they came up with the name Stepping Stones, which I think was a little safer way to describe it. So we called it Stepping Stones. And so thinking about, what's something new that you tried and it didn't go perfectly, and that's cool. And like, let's all learn from that. So that was a practice I thought was pretty effective at this. It's all about setting the culture, right? Culture is, what do we value? What behaviors do we celebrate? And so being intentional as a leader to help create that climate and culture within your team. Those are a couple of ways that you can do that.
Brian, I'm thinking we need to create a leadership resource guide on having these conversations. Steve's gonna pull you in on that.
Add another piece of things we need to develop.
Yep, hey, I've got my list. I'm excited.
Nice. Well, Steve, we're coming on an hour here, and one of the things we like to do at the end is so the idea that we kind of really kind of influence people, or rather teach, is that like whenever we have a conversation from a slightly different perspective, we generally come away with new perspectives, like a new idea, ways of thinking. And so we've had a chat here in an hour, and what I'd like to do is like what we try to do at the end is like, what's new for you, right, through this conversation, and that's a question that all three of us will answer, right? Like what from an hour ago to now, what's new for you? Yeah.
Okay. Who's going to go first?
You.
Okay.
Actually,
right.
you can say who goes first. You're the guest.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm happy to lead off, and I love the question, Brian. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity to reflect on my journey, through leadership, and obviously having an epic failure. Like, I guess this is cheating. This is not a new thing, but it's reminding me of how true it is. I am so grateful for that early failure, and so grateful that those two amazing women had the strength, right, to tell Nancy, hey, I don't want to work for this guy. Like, I'm sure that wasn't an easy conversation for them. And I'm sure there was lots of trepidation. Like, does that mean they can't be on the team? Like, they might have been worried about their own future when they shared that with her. So that took a lot of courage. And thank goodness they said it, right? Because imagine how miserable we all would have been working together, or me struggling for us to be working together. Instead, they had the courage to give the feedback. The feedback had that, hey, this guy's not quite ready. I mean, I was such the beneficiary of that feedback, even though it was heartbreaking to hear and really embarrassing to hear. Like, I'm so grateful they had the courage to share it, and that Nancy had the courage to relay it on, and that she had that she continued to believe in my potential and didn't give up on me. So what I'm reflecting on that's new is really a rekindled appreciation for the importance of honesty and feedback to help people grow and develop.
Nice.
Yeah.
How about Bree? What's new for you?
There's so much here, but I guess what I'm really thinking about is how I want to show up as a leader, and what, especially in the places that we're in right now, particularly with Finding Good, where we are like, go, 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 let's hit the ground running, flying by the seat of our pants, startup environment. And I want to be able to slow down and give, when we bring people on, giving them the time and space to grow and learn with them, and to develop that dynamic and really show up as a leader, which I don't think I have given much thought about how I want to show up as a leader. So I really appreciate that, Steve.
Yeah, and for me, it was really early on that you were describing, like, moving into this new role, and like, I wanted to be successful, and I wanted to, like, all of the things, like you were driving towards like a clear understanding of value, or rather clear to you, and that, like, I always just like think about this idea of like, it's not that we're doing the right or wrong thing, right? It's that, like, inherently we're just driving to whatever right value we're trying to create. It's more like, until I'm clear about what a different value is, right, that, or a value that I can create, and that's like the beauty that I heard in your, in that Nancy person, that like she helped you see that like this value you're trying to create might look like this, and so we just take the energy and drive it there. And for me, it was that, like, because I think it's easy to jump out and like, oh, you're doing it wrong, or like, no, you're doing it right. Maybe we do it a little righter, right? Yeah, like that. It's changing it, and it's that constant click back of like, before I check somebody of like, you're doing it right or wrong, or like, what are you trying to do, right? Because I think that, like, you had been successful in driving, and you were very clear, and the more clarity there is on what you're trying to do, the more we can then say, oh, well, maybe do it this way. So
Yeah. And Brian, Brady, do you mind if I share a quote as we're
sure.
closing out? This is one of my favorite leadership quotes, and it's actually a quote about connection. And I think it's really apropos to the story I shared. And the quote is, if we want to lead people in the future, we must connect with them deeply in the present. And as I think about, what I failed to do early on, I was trying to lead them and that group into the future without any recognition of connecting and how important that was, right? And if we think about what Nancy did so well and beautifully with me, is she helped lead me into a better way of leading, but she started by connecting with me in that in that moment, and creating that safety for me to be vulnerable and figure out how to pull it together and get better. So connection is at the heart, I think, of creating that climate with our people and being the kind of leader we want to be. Yes, of course, always mindful of the results and what we're there to deliver. But the best way is by doing that with our people and connecting with them.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to close this out. Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate your time today, your perspective. This is a super fun conversation, and
Yeah, thank you.
thank you, Bree,
loved it.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Yeah. All right. Well, we made it through another one and we didn't lose anybody. So yeah, awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week.